I've lived in Donbas my entire life, and in this video I'll explain why Trump's peacekeeping efforts have still failed, almost a year into his second presidency. This video was recorded in early December 2025. I hope the situation has improved by the time you watch it. Reason number 1. War is Putin's greatest asset, and, by and large, the only thing he can currently offer the rest of the world. While the war is ongoing, he can speak almost as an equal with the American president. The world's media follows his every utterance. He feels like the arbiter of the fates of entire nations. As soon as a ceasefire is signed, Putin will suddenly become irrelevant and unnecessary to the civilized world. From the leader of the world's largest country, he will become the governor of a Chinese resource colony. He will no longer be able to speak as an equal with the leaders of the world's leading powers. Putin is deeply afraid of this scenario. He's willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of Russians to delay the end of his moment of glory. Reason number 2. For the Russian economy, continuing the war is safer than ending it. Yes, the war requires enormous budget expenditures, but for now, thanks to the continuous flow of petrodollars from China and India, it can be financed. Over the past 4 years, the entire Russian economy has been restructured to support the war. An entire ecosystem of new economic sectors has formed around the military-industrial complex. For many Russians, the war has become a way out of poverty. Those who barely survived on a salary of less than 200 euros in 2022 now earn several times more working in military production. For signing a contract with the army, men receive in a year what they would never have earned in a lifetime before the war. The Russian budget has become the main and most generous employer, and the economy has transformed into something resembling the planned Soviet era. Everyone involved in the war is now living a better life than they could have dreamed of before. Many goods and services survive on the market only due to demand from Russians who profited from the war. The entire state has been transformed into a vast military machine. A side effect of this transformation has been the withering away of many civilian industries, the money from which has been diverted to the war. The Russian state has long since passed the point of no return when it could have painlessly transitioned back to a civilian economy. The war bubble has already inflated enough that its collapse could have an avalanche-like effect. A cessation of hostilities would place enormous stress on the economy. The Russian regime is unsure whether it can survive the reverse transformation without significant consequences for its stability. By continuing to fight, the Russians are putting this problem off the table. They still have the money for the war. Truly serious sanctions against Russian oil could make continuing the war riskier than ending it. Reason number 3. Donbas. The Russian regime is deeply afraid of a scenario in which it cannot sell the end of the war to its population as a victory. Any ceasefire without a decisive victory will very likely be perceived as a sign of regime weakness. Russian society will not forgive this. They are willing to tolerate poverty, corruption, and injustice, but not weakness, because a weak czar cannot implement the imperialist views of the majority of Russians. If a ceasefire is concluded along the current front line, even the full force of Russian propaganda will not be able to convince the people that they have won if the western part of Donbas remains under Ukrainian control. Currently, Ukraine continues to hold several thousand square kilometers of the Donetsk region, including an agglomeration with a pre-war population of 300,000. Russia cannot call itself a winner without this piece of land. And this is not just a matter of territory. The canal that supplied Donetsk and its suburbs with water before the Great War begins here. Now the canal is blocked, and Donetsk is facing huge water shortages. The Russian regime wants the entire Donbas region within its political boundaries. For this reason, they are unwilling to conclude a ceasefire until they have completely captured the Donetsk region. Currently, Putin is determined to continue the war until he achieves his political goals. Negotiations are simply a way for him to stall for time, delaying the introduction of new sanctions that could severely impact an already weakened economy. Naturally, Ukraine is struggling to hold on to the remnants of the Donbas region and is not going to give it up without a fight, but it's getting more difficult every day. Russians know the dire state of the Ukrainian army. Defenses along the entire front line are holding on with their last strength. The main problem is a catastrophic shortage of personnel. We often lose well-fortified positions simply because there is no one to defend them. For the past year, desertion has been a serious problem in the Ukrainian army. Every month, Ukraine mobilizes approximately 30,000 men, but more than half of them try to avoid war and join the lists of those who have left their units without leave. In October 2025 alone, 21,000 desertions were recorded. The Ukrainian government has no plans to introduce truly harsh penalties for deserters, as all countries have done during existential wars, so the problem will likely only worsen in the future. But the infantry shortage is just the tip of the iceberg of the Ukrainian army's problems. Over nearly 4 years of war, our army has transformed from a progressive, decentralized, and proactive force into a small red army where political considerations increasingly prevail over military ones. Now, this small, underfunded Soviet army is fighting against a larger and wealthier Soviet army, causing Ukraine to steadily retreat. Recognizing its dire situation, Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire along the current front line in order to halt the Russian advance and preserve as much territory as possible. But Russia rejected this proposal. Right now, Moscow is the main reason the war continues. They will only stop when they are forced to stop. Unfortunately, the American administration is blaming the wrong side for the war's continuation. Currently, Ukraine is under incomparably greater pressure than Russia, although ideally it should be the other way around. Ukraine needs a just peace, and as quickly as possible.